another perspective that is based on the basic three leadership theories based on three studies. So that's how we will try to make sense of the notions of leadership, leader and followers. So that's how we can understand. Looking at this particular slide, you will see three important concepts: conventional or ancient view of leadership. So what is conventional or ancient view of leadership? What is the modern view of leadership? And how we define postmodern view of leadership. So we will look this particular interesting term in three different views. First of all, what is conventional? Before understanding the conventional, you can see what is the meaning of conventional or ancient view. Generally, when we listen this particular term, conventional or ancient, things come to our mind that it's a very old concept, practiced some years very big in the history. Then we will have to think about the implications for leaders at different level. If a person practicing a conventional view of leadership, so that for that leader, what would be the implication for that leader at different level? We will have to reflect on that. A leader at very low level, leaders at middle level, and leaders at higher levels in the organizational life. For example, a leader at the very low level in the organization. That person, for example, if we say in the context of the school, a leader could be a teacher. Teacher in the classroom is a leader. At the middle level, it could be a coordinator or a deputy head teacher. Or at the highest level, that person could be a principal. So we can understand this practice of leadership at different levels. So we can make sense of modern view of leadership. What are the different things leaders do as compared to the people in the conventional or ancient view of leadership? Similarly, when we look at the postmodern view of leadership, so in what ways leaders in this particular postmodern view are aware of this view and how they can empower their followers? So we will look at these things in different ways. First of all, we will try to make sense of the first concept, that is the leadership. What is leadership? Since educational leadership is a complex and multidimensional concept, metaphors are powerful tools to explain the personal, cultural, contextual dimensions of leadership. For example, Virtanen explains that metaphors of leadership are strong instruments in describing the culture of the leadership in organization. Their descriptive power is based on their inherently evaluative content. Single metaphors can illustrate many dimensions of culture, and they are efficient tools for communication. So metaphorically, we can make better sense of leadership. Metaphors are powerful tools. They carry multiple meanings. So that's why we use here and there in this whole lecture metaphors of leadership, because those metaphors can better explain a particular brand of leadership in a particular socio-cultural context of an organization in which you are working. So what kind of the culture in the organization is all about how the practices of the leadership carry meaning for those sort of, action behaviors at the, grassroots level. In the light of metaphorical explanations, we will try to understand notions of these different three views: conventional, modern, postmodern. When we look at the first and old concept of the leadership, that is the conventional view of leadership, we will look at the history and see from where this particular concept emerged. Lead or leader is old. The concept of leader or the concept of lead is historically, when you look at, it's a very old concept. It's everywhere in the history. But surprisingly, leadership coined in 19th century in the British Common. So that's why we will develop our understanding of leader and a leadership in that particular perspective. Thus, the image of leader is, in that particular context, is a hero, young, energetic, male, heroic figure who controls a situation, who lead the people with an inspirational and a motivational dimension of the leadership. So that's how a heroic person, male heroic person, who is dictating, who is influencing people and lead from the front. So that was the image of the leader. And that person knew what needed to be done and direct others to perform a certain job. When we look at this particular concept of leader, there are few metaphorical images which can enable us to understand in that particular dimension. For example, leadership is controlling. This metaphor explains that a person who is a leader, when this practice comes to in the leadership, so that means that that leader is a person who is there to control a particular situation, either in an organization or in a classroom or in any situation, in a political scenario or in a social scenario or in a religious context, in different contexts, whatever the context may be. Second metaphor could be leadership as dictating. A person who believes that he is the person who can control, who can guide the people through his dictations, dictating people, do this, don't do that, kind of person. Another metaphor we can use here is a leadership as commanding, yet another important dimension of top-down approach to leading. Leadership as informing. Leadership role here is just to inform people, just to control people, just to dictate people, just to command from an upper hand. So this sort of different metaphorical images of the leadership in this conventional view explains that leadership is the role, leadership is the position that is there somewhere at upper hand, who can control, who can dictate, who can command, who can just inform what to do and what not to do. So that was the conventional image of leadership all about. Now look at another important view, that is the modern view of leadership. When we look at this modern view of leadership, metaphorically speaking, leadership is communicating and leader is facilitator. Communication, leadership as communicating means here the role of leadership changes all of a sudden. This is, you can see from a top-down approach to, that is in the conventional view, changed here in a very bottom-up approach, sitting with the followers, interacting with the followers, seeking their consent, seeking their ideas, and communicating with everyone and involving people. And as a result, the leader's role from dictating, informing, controlling, commanding to communicating. Leader is facilitator. Here, leader is not a dictator. Here, leader is not a commander. Here, leader is not a person who just inform, rather seek ideas, interact with people. So the role changes from dictation to facilitation. So what is your position? Do you think you are a communicating leader? And make sure everyone as your followers is better facilitated to become well aware. This is a question. For example, when you reflect on your own positionality as leaders in your respective organization, so you can ask yourself, what kind of the practices do you do in your organization? How you lead your followers, either dictating or communicating? Which brand of leadership you are practicing? So this is a question for you. And you can come up with your own answers when we sit in the discussions and discourses forum, where we will thoroughly discuss this question and ask you your opinion. What kind of leadership practices you are engaged with your organization? Now come to the another important view that this communicating modern view of leadership explains. For example, leadership as communicative or facilitative, collaborative means you believe in communication is life of the organization. So when you believe in this concept that communication is life of organization, so your working as communicative leader becomes clear in the organization that you do not wait for that kind of hierarchy to pass on a top-down approach to leadership. Rather, you believe that communication at all levels, bottom-up level, top-down level, and horizontal level, in all those kind of levels of communication, you open all those channels, because you believe that this is the communication, effective channels of the communication, whatever the channels might be, regardless of the hierarchy. You open all those channels because you believe that a communication is the life of the organization. The more effective communication within the organization, the more effective ways of communication in the organization, the more effective leadership practices would be there. So active interactions is means to change. When we look at the leadership as change, organizational change, that is the concept. Active interactions, when you as a leader become very interactive with everyone in the organization, what are their problems, how they solve their problems, what is your role that you can play to solve the problems of the employees in the organization? How can you bring change? How can you ensure to manage the change in the organization? Working as a reformer. So you as a leader, your role becomes as a reformer in the organization. You try to reform the old practices. You try to change those practices for the sake of improvement. So that's how your role is there. So meaning making is for communicative leadership. So whatever you as a leader, you are performing in the organization, you come up with the concept that making meaning is for communication. Whatever the task you are assigned, whatever the objective you have come up with, so you look for that at the grassroots level. So is everyone very much clear about that particular objective? Is everyone very much clear about how that message is gone to every individual in a true spirit? Because communication, if there is a communication gap, if there is not an effective channel of communication, that communication at the top level, at the leadership level, could not be communicated in the same spirit at all levels. So that's why your meaning making is that everyone should understand at the same level of meaning which you mean to communicate. Now here we will look at the final version of this postmodern view of leadership. This postmodern view of leadership is co-leading. Metaphorically speaking, co-leading. Leadership as co-rafting. Leadership as co-rafting means you are in a boat and everyone is holding a tool to raft the boat. So everyone is leader. And leadership is co-evolving. Leadership is co-becoming. These are the metaphors of the leadership in the postmodern view of leadership. Metaphor of knowing is holistic interpreting. What is the meaning of metaphor of knowing is holistic interpreting? Because you know everyone in the organization in a holistic manner. So what are the strengths and weaknesses as an employee in the organization? Is that person is performing at the highest level? So you try to know that person in a holistic manner. And accordingly, you use the brand of leadership as co-leading. You sit with that person. You understand that person. You develop their skills and capabilities. You are a people-centric person. At the same time, you are task-oriented person. Because you know when you resolve the problems, you help every individual and you develop the required skills in that person and develop that level of knowledge required to lead at that position the person is sitting. So when you look at that particular scenario with every employee in the organization, that means that you are co-crafting. You are leading the boat together. So in this whole process, you are co-evolving. You are co-becoming leaders. You and your followers are co-becoming. Collectively, you are developing yourself. You support the follower in such a way that your focus is on holistic development of that employee in particular context of his nature of the job. So that's how you can make sense of this particular brand of leadership. So developing community, that's something leader is co-worker. Communitying is a particular term coined here, developing community of practitioners. According to the notion of the leadership um, of community of practitioners, as Sarjivani has coined. And that's how you can develop a community of leaders. You are not leading from the front, but you become part and parcel of your community of leaders, co-leaders, to whom you are there to groom at the same level of your own, but you are still at a person who knows everything but does not feel others that you are the only expert, and they have some restriction. So you are there to polish everyone similar to you, your position. So you are developing a community in the organization. So you become a co-worker with those people. If the person is a gatekeeper, you work as a gatekeeper. The gatekeeper feels that you as a leader, as a co-worker with that person. So the same way when the teacher is in the classroom, you work as a teacher, not a principal. So you become a colleague to the that teacher, and that teacher expresses his concerns, his views, his ideas, how to lead the class inside. So that's how the leadership brand is developing. Co-leadership is process of evolving together. So you evolve together. You do not dictate. You do not just simply provide a simple facilitation or simple communication, but here you are becoming part and parcel of the whole process of evolving together. Spirituality is means to meaningful leadership. So to you as a leader here in the postmodern image becomes meaningful leadership means a spirituality. To you, spirituality is means to meaningful leadership. Spirituality is something that needs to understand. That is something not a worldly task or simply and task oriented thing. Rather, it's something beyond that particular concept, and that is how you develop leadership as means to meaningful leadership. Spirituality, leadership and culture. Knowing cultural self is lenses. So you focus on yourself is to explore from within yourself. So who you are, what are you doing, what are you believing? So the same things what your co-workers are believing, what they are doing, what they are feeling. So you try to knowing cultural self within the culture of the organization, understanding yourself within the context of that organizational culture. So that's how you can make sense of this leadership. Critical self-reflection is ways to transformative leadership. And that is the most important dimension. When you practice all these,
चलिए गए नेट इंटरनेट
इक्कीस
हाँ सर कनेक्ट किया लेकिन वो रिकॉर्डिंग पे उन्होंने बातें करने से मना किया इसलिए हम खामोश रहते हैं मेरे ख्याल में
मैं अभी आया हूँ इसलिए पूछ रहा वही कल वाली बात हुई, कल भी ब्रेक हुआ था, फिर काशिफ के नेट से चलाया था, तो आज तो काशिफ भी नहीं है, वहाँ इशू है नेट का।
हाँ ये सैटरडे संडे को इश्यू होता है जहीर भाई।
नहीं, उसके अलावा वो उनके वो वाईफाई वाले थे
अच्छा आपकी आवाज भी आज क्लियर नहीं है, वो फ्लक्चुएट हो रही है बार बार, सही जगह पे नहीं बैठे हैं आप भी।
सिग्नल कहाँ कहाँ, बस तो
नवीद
घर
मेरी
थे।
आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ अमान भाई आपकी आवाज क्लियर है बिल्कुल।
यार सर को किधर भेज देते, यहाँ अच्छी नेट है आज।
आप बुलाओ ना, दावत तक पे आ जाएंगे सर को लेके हम।
वेलकम। बुबुर 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 जहीर भाई।
अला वो सरासिक का मुर्गा पकड़ के लाएंगे, वहां पे जबा करके लंच करेंगे।
सर आसिफ को मुर्गे से बड़ी लगन है लगता है।
अला वो लगता है कम पड़ेगा, इसलिए हुमा ने भी 2 मुर्गे पाले, वो भी लेके चलते। अलग कॉल करूं सर को? Scholars, sir is advising to disconnect all so that he will rejoin. Recording हो रही है तो सर ने कहा disconnect हो जाएं सब please.